My beloveds, it is a joy to still have ways to connect with you, even with me being so far away this week. And what a weird week it has turned out to be. Would like to stop picking up my cell phone and just having more unprecedented times. We could go back to the precedented times. That would be nice. Although sometimes I don't feel like my life has had many of those. When I chose the topic for this week's sermon, none of us is free until all of us is free, freedom felt a lot less fragile. I think the whole subject this month feels tenuous and scary and a little far away. As more and more things happen in our news cycle, especially as we're seeing the raids and the protests unfold in Los Angeles and less well covered ones in Orange County and fears of more happening here in San Diego, I can't help but wonder, what is freedom? What does freedom really look like when we say none of us is free until all of us is free? What does that even mean? A colleague this week has been a court observer for immigration courts in Orange County and shared that his first day on task, he was speaking to a young man who was seeking asylum. And the young man said to him through Google Translate, "If they send me back, they'll kill me." After his proceedings, the folks watching were pushed aside by ICE agents, and this young man was grabbed straight from their arms and taken away to God knows where. I doubt we will ever know what happened to that young man. None of us is free until all of us is free. So what is freedom? Well, technically, if you want to think about sort of a textbook definition, freedom is the intersection of liberty and autonomy. And the autonomy piece here is really, really crucial. You can't have freedom without choice. If choice is not there, it's not really freedom. It may be the illusion of it, but it is not true freedom. The autonomy to choose is the crucial part of freedom. So who gets to choose? Not just what is freedom, but who gets it? We've seen throughout history that those lines are blurred by gender, by race, by money, class, education, proximity to power. Proximity to power. I think that's really the biggest indicator of who gets to choose who is free and what freedom looks like. We know the United States, under no uncertain circumstances, was mostly built by wealthy white men. Of course, they didn't do the actual building. Their indications of who was free and who was not really told us who built this country, who had to be forcibly removed from it for this country to be built. We're taught in history classes about manifest destiny, but manifest destiny required wealthy white men to choose to remove violently the people who were already here and to put into practices violence in order to build and sustain this country. From the removal of Native Americans to the enslavement of Africans, our country has always had its freedoms chosen by the most powerful. It's been interesting this week. We've heard people say this isn't our country, this isn't who we are, and yet, in some ways, it always has been. So who chooses who gets to be free? And what does freedom look like? There's a lot of isms that decide who is or who is not. And when I talk about things like proximity to power, what I mean is proximity to wealth, proximity to the best schools, who your parents were, how much money you have, what the color of your skin is. We know these are all things that define power. Who gets to say yes? Who gets to say no? And we know the more identities that we have that are in proximity to power, the more power we have. We know that the least of us are always the people with less of those identities. I wonder a lot about this idea that when we start talking about voting about our interests or against our interests, how power and freedom go into the choice. We know that there were large numbers of women who voted against their own interests this year. And I have to wonder if it was the idea of we're so close to the people who make the choices, it would never happen to us. We've heard it ever since the ICE raids have started. We didn't think it would happen here. But that's just part of it. Proximity to power does not save us. Is proximity to power real, genuine freedom? Or is it just the illusion of it? There's always a direct correlation between freedom and power, and the people who have the most power will work the hardest to keep it and their freedoms. Freedom for thee, but freedom for me, but not for thee. It's a historical fact that those with the most power will hold on to it in any way that they can. None of us is free until all of us is free. We're seeing it as much today as ever, where the people in power get to decide who's right and who's wrong. As you watch things unfolding from Los Angeles, we're hearing so many news outlets say there's violence and there's terror and chaos. But I have friends on the ground, as I think many of our congregation might. I have clergy friends who stood outside a federal detention center in Los Angeles and sang and danced and prayed with the people. Is that what we call chaos? Or is that just what the people in power are telling us it is? Our First Amendment rights tell us that we are free to engage in peaceful protest. And my God, have we seen some beautiful, peaceful protest from Los Angeles this week. There's the good protesters, the nonviolent ones who don't fight back. That's the same indications we heard during the civil rights movement with the good Negro who didn't fight back. I think that's why history remembers Martin Luther King as a savior and Malcolm X as an agitator, when they both worked together. None of us is free until all of us is free. I keep saying it, and I feel like there is hope and passion and verve in those words, and yet so much uncertainty and fear. And I sit here today, this is the third time I've tried to record this sermon for you, not sure if this is a wandering point that is never getting where it's meant to go, or if maybe this is just meeting the moment. Maybe there aren't the right words for this. I know I was thinking about this sermon on my drive here today, and all I could do was cry. And I thought to myself how much privilege there was that I was driving to work in tears when there are other people who are fearing for their livelihoods and their lives today. And then I remembered that this is not an abnormal reaction. When I think about the many people who are living in terror right now, I should be having this reaction. If I was not feeling my heart rent in two over this, I would be so much more concerned. Because that is what true freedom is seeing that those of us who don't have that freedom and recognizing that there is more we could be doing. So what does freedom look like? What does getting free look like? We're seeing it on display right now in LA with multitudes of people from across diversity, from across racial bounds and cultural bounds and class bounds gathering together to sing and dance and pray together. We saw it in South Park a few weeks ago. We're still seeing it in LA. We're seeing it in Seattle. We're seeing reports come out of Texas and New York and Georgia and across this country, people coming together. And the most powerful thing they have is their voices. They are speaking truth to power. They are saying no more. Our governor of California this week said, "Stop terrorizing my families, arrest me." Senator Padilla, just this afternoon, showed up at a press conference to ask questions from about his constituents, and he was forcibly removed from the room for speaking truth to power. The most crucial way we get free is to not look away. All eyes need to be on what's happening. These things that feel like a bad dream, that feel like they never could have happened here, are happening here. And speaking truth to power and not looking away and bearing witness is one of the ways we get free. But it's more than just that. When we meet on a Sunday, that is how we get free. When we meet with the Lutheran and the Methodist churches, that is how we get free. When we show up at Pride, that is how we get free. It is building community. It's building mutual aid and support. It's being there for each other. It's not putting our heads in the sand. It's showing up and saying, no more. We see what is happening and we will not look away. Bearing witness is one of the things our faith has always been adept at. We come from abolitionists and civil rights leaders, and we come from people who sought truth and reason and dignity. That is our heritage as Unitarian Universalists, and we are a faith that I truly believe will rise to the moment and will continue to rise to the moment, whatever happens. I truly believe that freedom is not something we can earn. Much like our dignity, I think freedom is our divine right as humans on this planet. We should be free because we are here. Unfortunately, power does not always agree with us. And sometimes for us to get really, truly free, then we have to demand back the freedoms that have been stripped from us. It's big business, it's scary business, but it is faithful work. And it's work that all of us can do for each other, for those of us who cannot speak out for ourselves. So when you sit here and you look at what's happening in Los Angeles, if you're looking at the No Kings March this weekend, although by the time you see this, it will have passed, if you're thinking, what can I do? You're already doing it. Making sure we're sharing the right stories, telling people what's actually happening, being there, bearing witness as best as we can. That may not mean on the ground in person if it's not safe for you. There's always work to be done that helps speak truth to power in ways that we can individually do. We don't all have the same skill sets, but we do all want the same loving, liberative life for all. I never have the full picture. I never have a perfect answer, and I will never pretend I do. But for my own part this week, when I have felt hopeless and helpless and at times entirely useless. It has been this community, the people here at Summit, and the people in my life who have reminded me there is good work still to be done. You do not have to be protesting with a flag in Los Angeles to make sure we are bearing witness to what is happening. So for my own part, this week, I thank all of you for giving me a place to share these wonderings and these worries with you all. There's never a time I have preached a sermon for this community that I didn't need to hear as much as any of you. So my beloveds, on these days that feel like the world is crumbling from beneath us, we still have each other. We still have voices. We have not been entirely silenced, and nor do I think we could be. None of us is free until all of us is free, and I know there is collective work we can and will continue to do together. And even the smallest of things matters. Our job isn't to be Martin Luther King Jr. Sometimes our job is to be just Casey preaching a sermon, or just Sarah serving a meal. And sometimes when the world gets really big and really scary, that is how we practice freedom. It may not be here yet for all of us, but that is how we practice for the freedom of our future. My heart is with you this week and always, so may it be, and amen.